You don't belong here anymore." My father's words cut through the warm Christmas air like ice. 20 relatives sat frozen around the dinner table, watching as he pointed toward the door. "Pack up your plate and leave. This family doesn't need deadweight." The turkey grew cold as everyone stared. My mother looked down at her hands. My brother smirked. My sister nodded in agreement. Even my 8-year-old nephew asked why Uncle Tyler was being mean to everyone. What they didn't know was that I had been paying for everything they saw. The decorations, the food, the house payment that kept them from losing everything 3 months ago. I'm Tyler Harrison, and I'm 31 years old. For most of my adult life, I thought being the quiet provider meant being invisible. While my siblings got praise and attention, I built something real in the shadows. I worked in industrial logistics, managing warehouse operations for manufacturing companies across the Midwest. I saved every dollar, lived below my means, and slowly built a portfolio that grew into something substantial. I wasn't flashy about it. No expensive clothes or fancy cars. I drove a 12-year-old pickup truck and lived in a modest apartment downtown. But what my family never realized was that their comfortable lifestyle had been quietly subsidized by me for the past 3 years. I did it without asking for credit or recognition. I transferred money when they needed it, covered emergencies, and never kept score. I thought love meant helping family without conditions. I thought being related meant they would treat me with basic respect, even if they didn't understand how much I contributed. But sitting at that Christmas table, listening to my father call me deadweight, I realized I was completely wrong about everything. The humiliation started 2 hours earlier when I arrived at my parents' house. My brother Dean was already there with his wife and kids, bragging about his new promotion to shift supervisor at the plant. My sister Karen had driven in from 2 towns over, showing off pictures of her second rental property on her phone. "Look at us building empires," Dean laughed, raising his beer. "Some of us actually know how to make something of ourselves." Karen nodded toward me. Unlike others who are still renting apartments at 30, I stayed quiet, helping my mother carry food from the kitchen while they held court in the living room. This was normal. I was used to being the background character in family gatherings. But when we sat down to eat, something felt different. My father kept glancing at Dean and Karen like they were sharing some private joke. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Tyler," my father said after we had been eating for 10 minutes. "We've been talking, and we think it's time for some hard truths." The table went silent. Even the children stopped chattering. My heart started pounding before he even continued. "You're 31 years old, still single, still renting, still acting like you're above contributing to this family." I stopped chewing. The mashed potatoes in my mouth suddenly tasted like sand. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. Dean jumped in eagerly. "We mean you show up to every family event empty-handed, eat our food, and never offer to help with anything." Karen added, "You never contribute financially when mom and dad are struggling. You just sit there acting superior." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Never contribute financially. I literally covered their mortgage payment 2 months ago when Dad got laid off temporarily. But they didn't know that. "I help whenever I can," I said quietly, my voice barely audible over the sound of my heartbeat in my ears. My father scoffed. "Help? Tyler, when was the last time you offered to pay for anything? When was the last time you stepped up like a real man?" The weight of their stares felt crushing. "Dean just bought his wife a new car," my father continued. "Karen owns 2 properties now. They're building something. You're just existing, taking up space, expecting handouts." The humiliation was complete. 23 people at that table, including children, all looking at me like I was the family disappointment they had finally decided to address. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds, looking around at faces I had known my entire life. Nobody defended me. Not one person. My mother wouldn't even meet my eyes. "Are you serious right now?" I finally found my voice. My father's expression didn't change. "Dead serious. Maybe some time away from family gatherings will teach you how to be a contributing member of this family." My nephew looked up from his plate, confused. "Why is Uncle Tyler crying?" My father looked at the boy and said coldly, "Sometimes adults have to learn hard lessons about being a man, buddy. Your uncle needs to figure out how to take care of himself before he can be around family." Using my nephew to justify humiliating me was the breaking point. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. "Time away would be good," I said quietly, picking up my coat. Because then you'll finally understand what I actually contribute to this family." My father rolled his eyes. "What you contribute?" "Tyler, what exactly do you contribute?" I looked directly at him, then at my mother, then at Dean and Karen. "Give it 2 weeks. You'll figure it out." I walked to my truck in complete silence, hearing muffled conversations resume behind me as the door closed. Dean's voice carried through the window. "He'll be back next week begging for forgiveness. He always comes back. But this time was different. This time, I had something they didn't know about, and they were about to learn exactly what happens when you humiliate the person who has been keeping your world afloat." I spent the drive home making a mental inventory. Every bank transfer, every emergency payment, every quiet contribution I had made over the past 3 years. The vacation rental in Florida that Mom said was a gift from her sister, that was my $3,500. The new furnace in their basement, my $4,200. Dean's wife's surgery bills when their insurance denied coverage, my $8,000. Karen's down payment assistance when she bought her first house, my $15,000 that she told everyone came from her business profits. When I got home to my apartment, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had some accounts to close and some automatic payments to cancel. If they wanted to treat me like I contributed nothing, they were about to discover what nothing actually looked like. But first, I did something I had never done before. I took screenshots of every transfer, every bank wire, every payment I had made on their behalf. 3 years of financial records showing exactly how much nothing I had contributed to their lives. Because Tyler, the quiet one, was done being quiet forever. What they didn't know was that quiet didn't mean poor. While they assumed I was struggling because I lived simply, the truth was that I had been building wealth steadily since I was 22 years old. My logistics consulting business had grown from small local contracts to managing supply chains for major manufacturing companies across 3 states. My investment portfolio had quietly grown to over $600,000. I owned 4 warehouse properties in different cities that generated passive income every month. I owned 2 apartment buildings that were fully rented and profitable. I drove an old pickup truck because new vehicles were depreciating assets. I lived in a modest apartment because I was saving to buy the right commercial property with cash. I wore simple clothes because expensive brands were wasteful when that money could be invested instead. My family mistook frugality for failure. They also didn't know about the folder on my laptop labeled Family Support 2022 to 2025. Every transaction was documented with dates, amounts, and reasons. Not because I planned to use it against them someday, but because I kept organized records of all my finances. What they really didn't know was that their comfortable lifestyle had been partially subsidized by me for years, allowing them to live beyond their actual means. The next morning, I started making changes. I opened my banking app and began canceling automatic transfers. The monthly deposit that mysteriously appeared in my mother's account whenever their bills got tight, canceled. The automatic payment that covered the difference on Dean's truck loan, canceled. The quarterly transfer that helped Karen make her rental property mortgage payments, canceled. I also made some phone calls to business contacts. Dean worked at a manufacturing plant that subcontracted through my logistics network. I quietly informed my primary client that we would be ending our relationship with that facility due to reliability concerns. Karen's rental properties were managed by a company that used my warehouses for storage. I gave them 90 days notice that we wouldn't be renewing their lease agreements. If my family wanted to see what I contributed, they were about to get a very clear demonstration. I wasn't doing anything illegal or unethical. I was simply stopping my voluntary financial support and ending business relationships that were no longer profitable for me. The first call came on January 8th, 2 weeks after Christmas. It was my mother, her voice tight with panic. "Tyler, honey, there's been some kind of banking error. Our mortgage payment bounced, and I don't understand why. Can you help me figure out what happened?" I let it go to voicemail. 30 minutes later, Dean called. "Hey, weird question, but did you change your phone number? I tried to send you a payment request for the kids' school registration fees, and it said your account was unavailable." I let that go to voicemail too. By afternoon, my father called, his voice different than I had ever heard it. Worried, almost desperate. "Tyler, we need to talk. There have been some complications with our finances, and we need your help figuring out what went wrong." I answered that one. "Hi, Dad." Relief flooded his voice. "Tyler, thank God. Listen, we're having some serious issues with our accounts. Several automatic payments have been declined, and we can't figure out why. What kind of issues? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Well, our mortgage payment bounced, and when we tried to transfer money from savings to cover it, there wasn't as much there as we thought there should be. I waited in silence. Tyler, are you still there? I'm here. Can you help us? You're good with financial stuff, and we're really confused about what's happening. The irony was staggering. Dad, do you remember what you said to me at Christmas dinner? A long pause. Tyler, that was family business. This is different. This is an emergency. What you said was that I don't contribute to this family. What you said was that I needed to learn lessons about being a man. What you said was that I should stay away from family gatherings until I figure out how to be a contributing member. Tyler, please. We can talk about that later. Right now, we really need help with this banking situation. Did you do something to our accounts? He asked suddenly. I didn't do anything to your accounts, Dad. I stopped doing something to your accounts. What do you mean? I mean every automatic payment that's failing used to be covered by money from me. Every mysterious deposit that appeared in Mom's account when things got tight. That was me. Every time Dean's credit card mysteriously got paid down before it maxed out, me. Every time Karen's loans got paid ahead of schedule, also me. The silence lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Tyler, how long has this been going on? 3 years, Dad. 3 years of me contributing to this family in the most direct way possible while you convinced yourselves I was the deadweight. I could hear him talking to someone in the background, probably my mother. Tyler, we didn't know. If you had told us. If I had told you, what would have happened? You would have either rejected the help because of pride, or you would have started expecting it and treated me like your personal ATM. How much money are we talking about? He asked quietly. I opened the folder on my laptop. In the last 3 years, I have contributed $68,000 to various family expenses. That breaks down to about $1,900 per month in support that you didn't know you were receiving. The sound he made was like air being sucked out of his lungs. $68,000. $68,000, Dad. From the son who doesn't contribute anything. From the deadweight you kicked out of Christmas dinner. From the man who needed to learn lessons about being a real family member. Tyler, oh my God, we had no idea. The son who just takes up space and expects handouts. Tyler, please. We need to fix this. Can you come over so we can talk? Come over to what? Another family gathering where I don't belong. Tyler, please. I hung up the phone. It immediately started ringing again. Dean, then Karen, then my mother, then my father again. I let them all go to voicemail. The voicemail started coming in waves. First angry, then confused, then desperate, then apologetic. I listened to all of them but didn't respond. Dean's wife called crying, explaining they were going to lose their house without help with the mortgage payment. Karen sent long texts admitting she had been struggling financially for months and didn't know what to do without my support. My mother sent flowers to my apartment with a note that simply said, "Please forgive us." But the situation was bigger than just the money I had been providing. Through my business network, I had also been indirectly supporting their employment and business opportunities. Dean's plant started losing contracts as my clients shifted to more reliable suppliers. The layoffs began in February. Dean was among the first to go. Karen's property management company lost their warehouse lease, forcing them to relocate to a more expensive facility across town. Her rental income dropped significantly when she had to raise rents to cover the additional costs. By March, the full extent of my family's financial dependence became clear. My parents' house went into foreclosure proceedings. Dean's family had to move in with his in-laws after losing their home. Karen was trying to sell both rental properties at a loss to avoid bankruptcy. They had been living a lifestyle that required my secret subsidies to maintain. Without that safety net, their house of cards collapsed quickly. My father left increasingly desperate voicemails, his voice breaking as he described their situation. Tyler, we lost everything. We didn't understand what you were doing for us. We thought we were successful on our own, but we weren't. We need help. Please call us back. I finally decided it was time to have a conversation. I called him back on a Tuesday evening in late March. Dad, I got your messages. Tyler, thank God. We're in serious trouble here. We're losing the house. Dean lost his job. Karen might have to declare bankruptcy. We don't know what to do. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. Tyler, we know we were wrong about you. We know we said terrible things. But right now, we need to focus on fixing this financial crisis. What kind of help are you looking for? We need you to start the payments again. We need help with the house payment, help with Dean's bills, help with Karen's properties. We need things to go back to how they were. I was quiet for a long moment. Dad, do you remember what you said to me about learning lessons? Tyler, please don't make this about Christmas dinner. This is about family survival. This is exactly about Christmas dinner. You said I needed to learn how to be a contributing family member. You said I was deadweight. You said I didn't belong at family gatherings. We were wrong, Tyler. We admit we were wrong. You said I needed time away from the family. You said Dean and Karen were building something while I was just existing. Tyler, we understand now. We see what you were doing. We're sorry. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You're going to learn what it's like when the deadweight really isn't contributing anything. You're going to discover what your family looks like without me propping it up. Tyler, you can't mean that. We're family. You kicked me out of the family, remember? I'm just honoring your decision. Tyler, please. We have nowhere else to turn. You should have thought about that before you humiliated me in front of 20 relatives. I hung up again. This time, I blocked their numbers. If they wanted to communicate with me, they would have to find another way. That other way came 2 weeks later when my cousin Riley showed up at my apartment. Riley had been at Christmas dinner, but had stayed quiet during the confrontation. She was the only family member I still respected. Tyler, we need to talk, she said when I opened the door. The whole family is falling apart, and everyone knows it's because of what happened at Christmas. What do you want me to do about it? I asked, letting her into my living room. I want you to help me understand what really happened. I've been talking to people, and the numbers don't add up. Your parents couldn't afford their lifestyle on your dad's salary alone. Dean's expenses were way higher than his income. Karen's property investments seemed too good to be true. I showed her the folder on my laptop. 3 years of financial records, every payment documented with dates and amounts. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. Tyler, what the hell? You've been supporting the entire family. I was the invisible safety net that allowed them to live beyond their means, and then criticize me for not contributing enough. Riley studied the numbers for a long time. Tyler, this is insane. You've been their sugar daddy for 3 years, and they treated you like garbage. Now they're learning what life looks like without a sugar daddy. Are you going to help them? I looked at her seriously. Riley, they didn't just hurt my feelings. They humiliated me in front of the entire extended family. I know they did, and everyone saw it happen. But Tyler, they're going to lose everything. They already lost the most important thing. They lost me. Riley was quiet for a moment. What if they apologized publicly? What if they admitted to everyone what really happened? It's too late for apologies. They made their choice when they kicked me out. So what happens now? I opened my laptop and showed her something else. I've been making some additional business moves. Remember how Dean lost his job? His plant lost their contracts because I stopped recommending them to my clients. Karen's property management company lost their warehouse lease because I ended their contract. Riley's eyes widened. Tyler, you destroyed their lives on purpose. I didn't destroy anything. I simply stopped building them up. There's a difference. This is revenge. This is consequences. They wanted to see what I contributed. Now they know exactly what happens when those contributions disappear. You're not going to help them at all. I closed the laptop. Riley, they call me deadweight. They said I didn't belong in the family. Why would deadweight help with anything? 3 months later, I heard through Riley that my parents had lost their house and moved into a small apartment across town. Dean was working 2 part-time jobs and had filed for bankruptcy. Karen sold both rental properties at significant losses and moved back in with her parents temporarily. The family that had looked so successful and stable 6 months earlier had completely collapsed. In May, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my father, handwritten on notebook paper. Tyler, I know I have no right to contact you after what we did, but I need you to know that we understand now what we lost when we lost you. We didn't just lose financial support. We lost the best person in our family. We lost someone who loved us enough to help us secretly for years without asking for anything in return. We lost our son, our brother, our moral center. We were so focused on what we thought success looked like that we couldn't see real success sitting right in front of us. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that we know we were wrong about everything. I read the letter 3 times before putting it in a drawer. 2 weeks later, I decided to write back. My letter was shorter. Dad, You're right that you lost me. But what you lost wasn't financial support or even family loyalty. What you lost was someone who believed that family meant supporting each other without keeping score. What you lost was someone who thought love meant giving without expecting recognition. What you lost was someone who would have helped you forever if you had just treated me with basic respect. The money was never the point. The point was that you took everything I gave and then told me it wasn't enough. The point was that you humiliated me for not contributing while I was contributing more than anyone else. I hope your new situation teaches you to appreciate what you have instead of criticizing what you think is missing. But that lesson came too late for us. I didn't mail the letter. Instead, I kept it as a reminder of who I used to be and who I had become. By December, almost a year after the Christmas dinner incident, I had expanded my business significantly. The money I had been spending on family support went into new investments. I bought 2 more warehouse facilities and a small manufacturing plant. My portfolio grew to over $800,000. I was genuinely thriving without the emotional and financial drain of supporting ungrateful relatives. On December 20th, I decided to host my own Christmas gathering. I rented the community room in one of my apartment buildings and invited my business associates, a few close friends, and Riley. About 15 people total, but all people who respected me and valued my contributions. The dinner was simple but elegant. Good food, good wine, good conversation with people who appreciated having me there. As we sat around the table sharing stories and laughing, I realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. Mutual respect, genuine affection, and people who were glad to have you in their lives. Riley pulled me aside during dessert. "Tyler, I have to ask, do you ever miss them?" I thought about the question seriously. I miss who I thought they were. I miss the family I imagined I was supporting. But I don't miss being taken for granted. I don't miss being criticized for not doing enough while I was doing more than anyone knew. I don't miss walking on eggshells around people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. They ask about you all the time. What do they ask? They want to know if you're happy. They want to know if you ever think about reconciling. They want to know if there's anything they can do to fix what happened. I looked around the room at my chosen family, people who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. Tell them I'm happier than I've ever been. Tell them I learned that family isn't about blood relations. It's about people who treat you like you matter. And reconciliation? Riley, they burned that bridge when they decided I was deadweight worth discarding. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how much my life had changed in 12 months. I went from being the invisible family supporter to being the owner of a growing business empire. I went from being criticized for not contributing enough to being celebrated for my actual achievements. I went from begging for scraps of respect from people who should have loved me to being surrounded by people who genuinely valued my presence. The quiet son who was supposed to learn lessons about being a real man had taught the loudest lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop doing what you've always done. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, even with family. Sometimes walking away is the only way to show people what they really had. My father thought he was banishing deadweight from Christmas dinner. Instead, he banished the person who owned everything they had. And now, finally, I own something even more valuable, my own self-respect and a life surrounded by people who deserved my contributions. The quiet one had spoken, and the silence that followed taught them everything they needed to know.